Hello, everyone, and good evening. All right, let's not waste the time. Let me quickly log in into your account. That's 208. Every time I have to enter the password. Why it's not taking this in cache? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, the wrong password I was suspecting. Oh my God. TRAIN. Maybe this time I have. Yeah, I entered it correctly. That's good. Okay, so we have started with the classes, isn't it? In the next, in the last lecture, we have discussed like what is an Apex class and what are the different functionalities of this. Now I'm about to take you ahead in a discussion, and we're going to learn like how we can create the objects and why the objects are being required. All right. So let me create a class first of all. So I'm going to developer console once again, and I would be launching file menu where I'm going with select new and then Apex class. Now let me give a name like maybe a customer detail. Customer detail. And see, in most of the time you would going to see in a naming convention, generally, it's not something which is defined anywhere in the documentation. You're not going to find anything for this. But as I have seen in so many cases, like whenever we are trying to give a name to anything, could be a name of a class, a name of variable, or any entity. If it consists of two things, for example, in English, this actually means customer detail. But when we do write down this in English, we would obviously going to put a space in between. But when you are trying to give a name which actually comprises of two different phrases like customer and detail, but you're combining them, I have seen a usual convention between developers that, the first character we always try to give it in small and rest every other. For example, details start with D, that D would going to be in the capital. So this is the usual convention of naming, which I have seen so many times. You can follow the same process, or otherwise you can give as and when you want. I mean, all right. Chalo. So this is one of the class we have, and now let me try to create certain different variables, and I would just try to make few assumptions that if I wanted to capture a detail of a customer, what could be the different entities or what could be the different attributes which this entity could have. So if customer detail is, let's say, one of the entity for which I wanted to store certain records, let's see how many different attributes it could have. Uh, let's say it have something called as customer code. Now, when I wanted to store a customer code, that customer code, ideally it should be an integer value, right? So I would be defining an integer variable. So before even that, I'm going to give the access specifier to this as well, which we have discussed, right? If you would not give it, if you would not give any access specifier to the members of the classes, members could be variables, members could also be the methods. You can use them inside the class, inside this class itself, you can use them. So if you just wanted to if you just wanted to use a member inside the class only, there's no necessity to define it along with the access specifier. You can skip that portion. But it's always good. See, we cannot, we cannot assume this for a long that this class and these members of the classes are supposed to be used only in this class, or maybe they could be referred in some other places as well. So we never know this, right? This could happen. So considering all those possibilities, considering all those futuristic things, we always give access specifiers along with the variable declarations and method declarations. So I believe you should keep this in your practices. Whenever you are defining any member, particularly inside a class, try to always give, an access specifier to it. All right, let's move further. So I would be defining a variable called as customer code. Customer code. See, the same naming convention I'm following once here as well. And let's say the age of the customer. Then I may have certain different variables like public, Name. For name, I could define in string variables, maybe like customer name and or maybe his address, even the contact number as well, because phone numbers in the Salesforce, the phone number data type of phone number is always a string. It's not number. And then I could have a few of the decimal variables, like maybe like balance amount. I could also have certain date variables over here, like public. Public date and maybe a variable called as birth date, or maybe a variable called as date of joining, right? I'm getting certain errors. Why I'm getting it? What is the error? Unexpected to... What is that I'm missing? Customer detail. There's a some. Oh, that's gone. That's gone. Yeah, that's gone. Public. And let's have one of the Boolean variable as make like is active. Name would be is active. Active. What is the spelling of active? Yeah, this one. Let me now save this class. Understand. See, I just have created a class over here with a name called customer details, and this class have all these variables, right? Whatever you have defined inside a class, whatever you have defined inside a class. Now, this could be a variable, like you have defined so many of them, like integers. Some of them are integers, string, decimals. And in the coming days, we are also going to create methods inside the class. So both of them, whatever you have defined, inside a class, maybe it could be a variable or it could be a method. All of them are, first of all, they are known as, there's a name for that, right? They are named as, they are called as members of the class. Understand this. So all these variables like customer code, age, customer name, address, balance amount, birth date, joining date is active. So all these are what? These are, first of all, they are the members of the classes. All right. Now we will go further with this. Now see, understand this. There's one common interview question which would be asked, at this moment is, what happens when you create some members of the classes if you have defined certain variables in the class? Like, for example, you have defined 2 integer variables and you have defined 3 string variables. You have defined 1 decimal variable. You have defined 2 date variable, 1 Boolean variable. So are they going to consume any amount of memory or not? Now, what do we think at this moment? If I would give you one statistics, if I'll give you one figure, let's consider that every integer would require 4 bytes. What you are going to think in this moment, like, oh, there for every integer it would be like 4 bytes is going to be get consumed. So there are 2 integer variables. So obviously, how much amount of memory we are going to require? Let's say 8 bytes for integer, and let's consider for every string you would require 2 bytes. How many of them are over here? There are 3. So 3 twos is 6. And let's consider for the decimal you would going to require 10 bytes. So it would be like plus 10, and this would require something, let's say plus. These are not exact figures. First of all, these are not exact figures. All right, I'm just taking certain assumption. So what you can think at this moment would be like, okay, for all these variables, this much amount of memory, whatever it is, all right, whatever it is. So this much amount of memory is going to be get consumed. But actually it is not. Actually, it is not. See, when you create the variables, when you define the variables, memory is not being allotted. Memory is not being allotted. Memory actually would going to be get allotted when you would create object of this class. When you would create the object of this class. So we are moving further to learn how we can create the objects. That is going to be our upcoming consecutive topic. But There's one thing more technically you have to understand. When you create a class, you create certain variables, you define certain variables into that. Memory is not going to be allotted. Class is just like a template. It would say, it would create an impression to the compiler that if this class would refer, it have all these members. There are 2 of the integer variable, 3 of the string variables and all. But creating a class and then defining the variables inside this would not allot any memory. What maximum a compiler can do at this moment would be like, it would do that calculation which मैंने किया था यहाँ पे 10 plus 8 and something. It's just coming up with a certain amount of figure कि हाँ, maybe for this, whenever we are going to create an object, we would going to, let's say we are going to require 70 bytes of memory for this. But it would not going to allot anything. It would just say, this class and these all members would going to require 70 bytes of memory, every record which we are going to create for this class, how to create the records and everything we're going to learn, obviously. But so for every record of this class, it would consume 70 byte, but that doesn't mean it's actually have allotted memory for this. Defining a class members, defining the this variables inside a class would never allot the memory. Memory is only created when you have created the object. Because at the time of object, we give something called as constructors. All right, I'm coming on to that topic itself. All right, that was the first thing. Now, second thing and a very important thing. I'm giving you this command. You can now unmute yourself and you tell me one thing. When we have started with the object-oriented principle, I have talked about one of the object-oriented principle that, first of all, the Apex is a completely cloud-based object-oriented programming language, and it follows all of the rules of object-oriented programming principles. Now, there was one of the rule, encapsulation. All right, I wanted any one of you to explain, every one of us, to what does it means by the rule of encapsulation. Yes, what is an encapsulation, by the way? Anyone? Yes.
Protection.
Sorry?
Protection.
No. What does encapsulation actually means? Yes, Pallavi, Chetna?
Direct access to some components of an object, or it is achieved with the help of classes.
You guys are taking it very seriously, I think. That's a simple question. And I'm expecting a simple answer for this. All right, I'll draw this diagram. Now I would ask you to make certain guessings. Yeah, come on. No guessings at all? All right. There is a data. There is a data. Every class have its own data. But if you wanted to access the data, data can only be accessed. Data can only be accessed through methods. Data can only be accessed through methods. So whenever in a single entity, if you would combine data along with the methods, that is something called as encapsulation. Whenever we combine, if there is a system which combine data along with the methods, that if you wanted to access this data, you have to go through the methods. You wanted to access the data, you have to go through the methods. There is no another way. So this is something called as encapsulation, by the way. Now see, you have created a class with all these members. Right now, we just have variables. We don't have method. Method would be the upcoming topic. So, but ultimately, whatever it is, if it's a method, if it's a variable, both of them are considered to be the member of the classes, right? So the principle which I'm describing you right now, it actually implies to both of them. If I'm talking about variables, the principle is same. If I'll be talking about method, it's going to be the same once again. All right, chalo. So I wanted to give these variables some values. I can give any value to them. And it's not, see, at this moment itself, you can give. If you would give customer code equals to this value, this becomes a hard-coded thing. We generally don't do that. We can give it, but we don't do that. It is not required to give the values at this moment. You can give multiple values. I mean, what I wanted to say is like, why I am creating and see, this is one business unit. This is another. This is another. All of them are, we are going to refer them as an object. We are going to refer them as an object. Let's consider this is my obj1. This is my obj1, object 1. This is my object 2. This is my object 2. I can create as many number of the as many number of the objects we wanted for a particular class. There is no restriction of creating how many objects you could create for a class. There is no such governor limits. Remember, better would be like if you would take the running notes. All right, because I'm not sure how much of the information which I'm telling you has been written into the notes. I'm not sure. I have to check it out. Notes are very old, and from so many times I haven't updated anything into that. All right, so I'm not sure whether these things what I'm telling you right now are in the notes or not. All right, you have to check it out. But anyway, you can create any number of objects for a class. Now, when you are creating an object, every object, right, it represents a record. It represents a record. It represents the way to access these members. Like inside in this object, I can define like, I can define maybe like the customer code, let's say equals to this value. The name equals to this value. All right. Age equals to this value. All right. And I could have, for example, here as well, I could define 56. I could define Mahesh or something. All right. I could define maybe like 34. All right. For this one, I could have another value. Here I could write down maybe like 17 or maybe like or something like, this value. So what you just have seen, I have three different objects, and every object belongs to this class. Every object belongs to this class. Right? Every object belongs to this class. Yeah. And these are having the values, these are having the values. These are having the values. But you can see three different distinct value inside every object. That means if you would give customer code equals to 56, it would become 56 for all of the values. No, we don't want it to do that. We never do the hard codings. All right. So if you would do it, right, you don't have any chance to change this inside the object itself. That's why we never, if we are defining the variables, unless it is very important, we don't give the values to the variables while defining them. But this is, again, I'm saying this is not a rule. This is the maximum possibilities. This is what I'm saying is like in maximum number of the cases with maximum probability possibilities. Whenever we are creating variables inside a class, we usually don't give the values. We keep them independent. And so that we could reuse them anywhere at any with any values, right? Here the customer code is having different value. Here it is having different. Here it is having different. So that is what is an advantage if you would not define it with any hard coded values. But in some amount of cases, very very few of them, we do require to give the values at that instance. So maybe that could also we are going to see, let's say, but generally we don't give it. All right. Now, so whenever if you wanted to access, now listen this very carefully, better if you would write it down. Better if you would be write it down. This is a very important statement which I'm saying right now. If you wanted to access any member of a class, or I would change the definition, I'll make it in the form of definition. The members of the classes, in the bracket, you can write down variables and methods. The members of the class, members of the class, in bracket, you can write down variables or methods. The members of the class can only be accessed, can only be accessed. The members of the class can only be accessed by creating object or instance, by creating object or instance of that class, by creating object or instance of that class. The members of the class can only be accessed by creating object or instance of the class. So if you wanted to access the members, I mean, these are the members I wanted to access. So I should have to create instance or object of the class. Then and then I can access these members. All right, let me show you how. So let's go to the execute anonymous window. Let's go to the execute anonymous window, and here I would be creating instance of the class. All right, let's understand how we can create the object. So the format is, the format of this is class name, object name equals to, there's a keyword new, once again, class name, and this opening and a closing bracket. This is the syntax. This is the syntax of creating an object of a class. Now let me follow the same thing. What is the name of my class? I'm just copying this, customer details, all right? Customer details. Then give the name of the object. You can give any name. For example, cust name equals to, then there's a keyword called as new. I'm going to define this whole statement. Don't worry. Let me just finish this one. All right. And then once again, class name. And after giving class name, just write down one opening and a closing and make a semicolon over there. So this is how we can create, an object of a class. So from this onward, this cust name, whatever it is, or maybe just CUS, this cast would represent an object of this class, and you can create as many number of them. For example, there's no restriction. Understand, there's no governor limit. I could create like cast 1. I could create like cast 2, and I could create any number of them. I could create any number of them. There is no restriction into this, like how many objects could be created per class. There is no such governor limit. All right, you can create as many number of as you wanted. Now, let's understand this in very detail. This is my class name. This is my user given object name. All right, that means it could be customized at any instance. You can decide what the name you wanted to give it. Now, the more important thing is on the right hand side of equals to. This is something which we have to discuss in detail. New is a keyword. New is a keyword. When I say keyword, what does it mean by a keyword in programming language? Yes. Yes. What does it mean by a keyword in programming language? Yeah, come on, give me the answer. Come on. When I say this is a keyword, like integer, string, boolean, date, these are keywords. When I say keyword, what does it mean? What does it refers to in a programming language? Come on, guys.
So we cannot use that word for any other like customized name.
Exactly. Very good, Ruchira. When you say a keyword, keywords are those reserved words. We cannot change their meaning to the compiler. You cannot use them for what is the purpose have been defined. You cannot define any another purpose to them. If this new is being used for certain things, compiler know what is the use of this new keyword. Wherever this he is going to find this in program, he know what to do with this. You cannot change the definition of this. So there in every programming language, there are some certain set of fixed words which we cannot change. We cannot use them for any another purpose apart from what they are supposed to do. Those kinds of words are called as keyword. If any one of you have learned the C programming, in C programming, there were 32 different keywords. And this has been increased gradually with every programming language. But C was considered to be the most successful language. So it was having, the C programming was having 32 different reserved words, 32 different keywords. So new is a keyword. New is a keyword. And this keyword is used to reserve memory. The keyword is used to assign the memory, reserve the memory. Reserve the memory. All right. I have told you, when you create a class, for a class, memory is not allotted. Memory compiler will just do the calculation. And if no, he know. Like if in the coming future, if I would require to allot the memory, how much amount of memory should I have to give with this? He just know that figure. But when you define an object, because during the course of object definition, you used a new keyword that would give a memory, that would actually allot the memory. All right. That would actually allot the memory. I'm just deciding, should I explain this in more or not? Let me explain it more. The memory which we used in programming, particularly in Apex programming, is called as heap memory. See, every program always requires a certain amount of memory for execution. All right, every program, whatever the programming you are doing, every program always requires a certain amount of memory for the execution. That usually is called as executable memory. That usually is called as executable memories. Now, in terms of Apex programming, the first thing, if I'm saying that you are defining a new keyword, the new is actually reserving certain amount of memory, but this memory does not belongs to the memory of your RAM. It is not taking the memory from my computer, from my laptop. Rather, this memory is allotted in server. This memory is allotted in server. We have learned that you have learned this in the very beginning. I think that was my first lecture where I have explained you about SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS, software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service. When we say PaaS, platform as a service, so PaaS mainly consists of two things. PaaS mainly consists of two things: database.com and force.com. Database.com is the data repository of Salesforce, where everything, whatever data you are generating in terms of, like, you have records inside the object. If I would go to this object, for example, I go to account and I wanted to see how many records are there. I'll go with this option. I can see that there are 132 records. Now, where these all records are present there, for me, it looks like to be that these are present inside an object called account. All right, very good. Very good. But what is account? Acha, just tell me this or not. I think I haven't taken that topic. Maybe that is upcoming. Did I have explained something called as MVC architecture, model view controller? Yes or no? Just give me the answer for this. MVC architecture, model view controller. Did I ever have discussed? Do anyone remember this?
No.
No, sir.
Oh, you guys are sure, right? किसी को ऐसा याद आ रहा है क्या कभी कुछ ऐसा याददाश्त में कहीं?
No, sir.
नहीं, तुम लोगों पे भरोसा नहीं है क्योंकि बिकॉज यू जस्ट लर्न इट टुडे, यू आर गोइंग टू फॉरगॉट इट टुमारो. लेकिन नहीं है ना, सब मेजोरिटी के साथ जाना पड़ेगा. आई हैव टू टेक योर ओपिनियन. ऑलराइट, ठीक है भाई. तो एमवीसी आर्किटेक्चर इज समथिंग व्हिच आई एम गोइंग टू डिस्कस. उसमें ये और अच्छे से क्लियर करूंगा मैं. बट मैं अभी थोड़ा सा शॉर्ट करता हूँ फिर इसको. अगर मैंने पढ़ाया नहीं है मतलब आने वाले टॉपिक्स में पढ़ाने वाला हूँ. See, in the force, when we say platform as a service, it have two important components: force.com, database.com. Database.com is that data repository. Everything, whatever data you are generating inside your org, the data inside of your objects, they are getting stored inside a data server called as database.com. And force.com consists of all those runtime engines what you requires, that those runtime memories what you require. All right. So the force.com actually, is a place, is an environment which is responsible to perform the execution of your program. So whenever a program is getting executed, this implies for everyone. Every program always requires a memory. In case of Salesforce, this is a memory called as heap. I can explain you more on this because I am a computer engineer. This is in my DNA. But let me stop it. Otherwise, I could even explain what is a heap memory, what is a stack memory. I could explain you what is a queue memory. I have learned this all in my engineering, but I don't want it to take you in that much deep because we are ultimately not learning a procedure oriented. Okay. Knowing this much, I think is sufficient for you guys. So when you would do this, मैं कहाँ पे चल रहा था? I was creating a program for you guys. Yeah. So when you would use a new keyword, it would, for example, compiler already knows that I have to give like 55 bytes, 55 bytes, bytes bytes of memory, right? I have to give 55 bytes of memory. That already have been calculated. That was just a calculated figure, although the memory was not allotted. And when it was calculated, the time when you have saved this class, you have saved. See, it is not saved right now. You see this asterisk symbol? It indicates I have not saved. Now, when I press Control S from my keyboard, it's actually saving. And as and when you have saved this, compiler just know it is somewhere it has making a small note that this class would going to require 55 bytes of memory, but it has not given. It has now allotted because now you have created an object. Now you have created an object. Now you have created an object. All right. That is what it means by a new keyword. So new would actually allot allocation of the memories being done from the new. And this, now let me take you further with this, a very important thing, very, very important thing. This is first of all a method. Wherever you see a opening and a closing round bracket, you first of all would have to name this as a method. This is a method like system dot debug. This is also a method. Why? Because in front of this name, I can see this opening and a closing round bracket. Every time it means this is a method. This is a method. All right. Anywhere in the program, if you would see an opening and a closing bracket, this would actually means it's a method. This would actually means it's a method. But थोड़ा ध्यान से सुनिए अभी इस चीज को. If the method name is same as the name of the class, if the method name is same as the name of the class, if you would see any method whose name is exactly same as the name of a class, that type of method is called as constructor. That type of method is called as constructor. Now, what is the use of constructor? Constructors, along with new keyword, both of them are responsible to allot the memory. So if this memory allocation is being done, it's not just one man job. If I would say that 55 bytes of memory is now being reserved inside heap, 55 bytes of memory is now being reserved. So this, who is responsible for this? New? Yes, new is of course, but new was not alone. These two are the partners in this crime. All right, these two were the partners in this crime. These two guys were responsible, new along with a constructor. And this constructor, who's the name whose name is same as the name of the class is called as default constructor. This constructor whose name is the same as the name of a class is always called as default constructor. Default constructor. So the main idea behind this constructor using a default constructor along with a new keyword is to reserve the memory for this class. You can simply say in one sentence, if you don't want it to go in the details, you don't want it to be a computer engineer like me, no problem. You wanted to be just a Salesforce guy, that's okay. That's okay. You can simply say that this new would define a memory for this class. Customer details are what? It's a class name. It's a class name. All right. And from this onward, that memory, what was being allotted, that memory, if I wanted to use this memory, there's a name for that customer code, cust CUST. That is the name of the object. So object internally is that channel, that bridge by which you are going to make a use of that memory, by which you are going to use the variables, by which you are going to use the members of the class. Without defining an object, I cannot, no one of you cannot use the members. So whenever we wanted to use any member of a class, we always have to define an object, remember. Now, because I already have it, let me now show you customer dot. What is the first variable name? Let me come to this. First variable name is customer code. So, right, equals to now I'm giving the value. I'm giving the, see, if without giving this, अगर मैं ये value ऐसा इसके अलावा देता हूँ, it's going to throw me the error. You can try it out, but you are definitely end up with the error. I know. Cus dot. What is the next thing? Age. Age. Let me give it to some values. I will always give. I would give integer. Why? Because that two variables are of the data type integer. This is name. All right, cust, and this has to be same always. All right, name is, let's say, Samir, and then cust address. Address is maybe like Nagpur, and then cast dot contact number. See how the values are being giving. So it's always like, it's always like variable name. I mean, it's always like object name dot variable name, object name dot variable name. You always have to follow this pattern. You cannot skip this. All right, you cannot skip this. Whenever you are referring to any member of a class, it always have to be referred along with the object name. And the format is object name dot member name. Object name dot member name. Contact number would be something, a value, maybe like this. And then cust dot, what is the next variable name? Balance amount. Balance amount. Yeah. And this has to be always same. And that's the reason, I am actually copying it. So because that's a decimal, I can give the direct values to over here. I can give the direct values. And now we have maybe, what is next? Cust dot birth date. So I would be giving the value as maybe, see here, instead of giving a direct date value, you can make a use of a standard class. There's a class called as date, and inside date, when you put up a dot, it would give all the methods inside this class date. There's a method called as new instance, right? There's a method whenever if you would require to define a date, instead of giving a direct value like this, you can make a use of this class new instance. So it would give you the way to define a date. So it would ask you for the year. I can give date of birth would be like 1990, or maybe some values. Month should be maybe like, what is the month? Month would be like 02 February, and then day would be like 10. All right. So this is the date. That's not my birth date, obviously. Yeah? Don't think this is my birth date. Usually people ask me. This is not my birth date. And then date of joining. So date of joining, I'll show you one more systems, one more method. system dot, let's say today. So this would give the today's date. Now, if you wanted to add something here, we have add days. All right. You can add some more days, add months. These all are the methods. You can explore them. You can explore them. And now we have Boolean variable is active. So I'll like cast dot is active. And because that's a Boolean variable, it can either have true or a false, but not apart from these two values. So that is what I just did. You know what I just did? I have signed the values to the variables of the class, right? I just have assigned the values. Now let me try to print all of them. Let me try to print them. So I would be printing the values. Okay, let me go with it. So when you wanted to print them, we have system.debug. System.debug. And let's say I wanted to, I'll start with the first of them. I'll cover all of it. All right. So the customer code equals to, I wanted to print the value of what? Customer code. But you cannot, I am see, once again, I'm saying this to you. If you ever, wherever you wanted to refer any variable, any member of a class, you always have to refer it along with the object name. You cannot, it's not like कि जब आप value दे रहे हो तभी ऐसा करना है. जब आप, even if you are retrieving the value, you'll also have to follow the same pattern. All right, you'll also have to follow the same pattern everywhere. Don't forget this. Now, once again, system.debug. Better I would just know why I'm copying this. What is next? Age. Age of the customer, let's say equals to, I'm giving one space over a plus. Here I can copy cust.age. So this would give me the age of that customer. And now system.debug, the name of the customer equals to plus. Here I can copy this one, cust.customer name. And then the next would be system.debug. What is the next? Address. The address equals to plus. Let me copy this. And then the next system.debug. After address, we have contact number. The contact number equals to plus contact number. The next is the balance amount. The balance amount equals to, let's say, plus balance amount, and then system.debug. What is after that? Birth date. All right. The so many typos. देखो ये डिफरेंस आप ऑब्जर्व करो. मॉर्निंग की क्लास और इवनिंग की क्लास के बीच में ये जो डिफरेंस है ना, ये ऑब्जर्व करो आप लोग. Efficiencies decreases. But don't worry, अभी तो मेरे काम का आधा ही दिन हुआ है. The next is date of joining. So the date of joining equals to plus date of joining. Finally, system.debug, wrong. Is active equals to plus. Plus, all right. Okay, that's it. So I have created object of the class. Now with respect to this object, first of all, I have assigned the values, and now I would be printing this value. So let me go and execute this program, and I'll go back to the developer console. I make a click on debug only, and you would be going to see the output. All right. So this is like how First thing, how we can create a class. Second, how to define the variables inside the class. Third, how to create the object of the class. Fourth, with respect to the object, how you can assign the values to the variables. Fifth, how you can print the values of the variables. All right. Go with this program by today. And in the next session, let me see what I'm going to take. I would be going to start with ORM. And with ORM, I would also explaining you, MVC architecture of Salesforce. MVC architecture of Salesforce. All right, so this is what I would be explaining in the next topic. That's all for today. You have any questions to ask? Please go ahead. Yes. Any questions? Any questions? All right, guys, then thank you so much for joining. Bye-bye.